Gwen Stacy sat perched on the edge of a snow-dusted rooftop, her white hood pulled low over her mask as the snow fell in slow, swirling spirals around her. The air smelled clean, crisp, like frozen pine and faint chimney smoke. Beneath her, the city of Moscow spread out in brilliant color and old-world geometry. Domes like candy spirals and onion bulbs lit beneath strings of golden street lamps. St. Basil's Cathedral stood proudly in the foreground, its ornate towers kissed by ice and memory. She breathed slowly, the kind of deep, deliberate breath that brought warmth back to her center. There was no danger tonight, no supervillain, no multiversal collapse, just her, alone, far from home, in a city caught somewhere between a fairy tale and a history book. Her gloved fingers rested on her knees. The snow crept up her arms and shoulders, melting slowly into her suit's smart fabric lining, evaporating into warmth. The people below moved like shadows in the light, bundled in long coats, hands in pockets, moving from one warm place to another. Subways, cafes, doorways, glowing like little hearths. She watched them the way a lighthouse watches ships, not interfering, just witnessing. It was a kind of peace she didn't get back in New York, especially not lately. She closed her eyes. The world dimmed into sound, the gentle rustle of wind dragging flurries through narrow alleys, the distant chime of a church bell, the slow, steady crunch of boots on icy sidewalks. Somewhere nearby, a radio played muffled jazz in Russian. Someone laughed. For a moment, Gwen let herself forget who she was supposed to be. Not a hero, not a fugitive, not a daughter or a team member, just a girl on a rooftop in winter. Gwen stretched her legs out across the slope of the rooftop, letting her ballet shoes crunch gently into the thin layer of fresh snow. It sparkled faintly under the ambient glow of city lights, 100 tiny reflections of street lamps, headlights, and neon flickers. She watched it cling to her toes and melt just enough to glisten, like frosting on warm bread. A tram rolled by several blocks away, its windows glowing amber like a string of moving lanterns. It let out a gentle chime, and Gwen followed it with her eyes, smiling faintly behind the mask. She imagined the people inside, a man holding his daughter's mittened hand, two students with earbuds in, sharing a playlist, someone leaning against the fogged glass, lost in thought. Each one of them had their own world, their own warmth. The city was so big, and yet tonight it felt almost intimate, like it had made space just for her. She tilted her head toward the sky. Snowflakes spun down like slow motion confetti. Moscow's skyline was a mosaic of centuries. Tsarist towers, Soviet blocks, glass skyscrapers, all nestled together under a blanket of snow. Somewhere across the rooftops, a dog barked once, then again, the sound carried softly by the hush of falling snow. Gwen turned her head lazily toward it. She spotted a blur of motion on a balcony below, a golden retriever nosing at a pile of snow while its owner stood inside the doorway, sipping something from a ceramic mug. The dog wagged its tail and pawed at the railing, looking up. Maybe it sensed her. Maybe it was just excited by the snow. Either way, she lifted a hand and gave a tiny wave.
Hey, buddy.
She whispered.
Nice night to relax on the rooftop too, huh?
The dog barked again, tail swishing like a broom across the snow. Gwen chuckled and laid back against the sloped roof, her body forming a light impression in the powder. For a moment, she just laid there, watching the sky swirl like a shaken snow globe. She didn't miss the noise, not tonight. The sirens, the tension, the chase of being needed and stretched too thin. Here, there's only stillness, the kind that settles deep in the bones, like soaking in a hot bath after a long week. She let it wash over her, let the cold press gently against her mask and remind her she was present. There was a softness to the world from this height. Buildings breathed warmth through their chimneys. Car tires made soft hiss sounds on the wet streets. Strings of festive lights looped between lampposts, glowing red and gold and green. She imagined how the locals must see this season. Families cooking together in tiny kitchens, couples slipping mittened hands into each other's on park benches, children with flushed cheeks building snowmen on their stoops. In a nearby alleyway, a boy tugged in his mother's hand, pointing up. Gwen froze. For a second, she thought maybe he had seen her, but his finger was aimed higher, at the sky. She followed his gesture and spotted what he saw, a lone white owl drifting silently between rooftops. It passed directly overhead, wings spread like the pages of an open book, before disappearing into the darkness. The boy laughed with joy. His mother smiled, bundled in a long red scarf. Then they kept walking, disappearing beneath the glow of a lamppost. Gwen exhaled softly. That's what this night was, a slow glide between two moments, like the owl, unhurried. She reached into a side pocket and pulled out a small journal. The cover was worn, the pages curled slightly at the edges from weather and time. She flipped it open to a blank page and let her gloved fingers hover over the paper. After a pause, she began to write. Moscow, December. The snow here doesn't fall, it drifts, like it has somewhere to be, but it's in no hurry to get there. Like me, I guess. Tonight, the city feels like it's exhaling. Soft lights, soft music, no demands, just being. I wish I could bottle this quiet, carry it in my pocket like a charm. But for now, I'm content just watching it breathe. She paused, rereading her words before tucking the journal back inside her jacket. The pen clicked softly. From a side street, the sound of violin music began to rise. It was faint, but unmistakable. A street musician, probably playing near one of the walkways leading to Red Square. The notes floated up like soap bubbles, delicate, aimless, beautiful. Gwen leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, and listened. She didn't recognize the tune, but it didn't matter. It was the kind of melody that held its own emotion, no translation necessary. Melancholy and contentment intertwined, the way only a winter night could compose. It reminded her of something she'd read once. Some nights don't need stories, they are stories. And this one? This one was unfolding without a single villain or twist. The music faded, followed by distance, and Gwen stayed there for a while longer, her breath a soft rhythm behind the fabric of her mask. Snowflakes caught on her suit, melting slowly. She didn't brush them away. They could stay. Everything could stay just as it was. She didn't need to be anywhere else. Beyond the Red Square, the city moved slowly under its frosted veil. The streets weren't empty, but they weren't rushing either. A few bundled up pedestrians ambled down the sidewalks with scarves wrapped to their noses. A couple walked arm in arm past a bakery, their silhouettes dissolving into misty halos of streetlight. On the far side of the Kremlin, a group of teens were throwing snowballs near a statue, laughing loud and free under the glow of a half-lit lamppost. Moscow in winter felt like a story written in cursive, ornate, quiet, and looping gently toward its next sentence. Gwen's eyes wandered, as they often did, until they landed on a particular window across the street. It stood out not for its brightness, but for its warmth. A square of soft amber light glowing from the fourth floor of an old brick apartment building. The kind of light that didn't hum like fluorescence or buzz like neon. This was lamplight, the kind that lived in storybooks. It glowed like honey. The curtains were drawn back just enough to offer a glimpse inside. Gwen leaned slightly forward, elbows on her knees, her eyes tracing the edges of the scene. She saw a woman in a thick sweater stirring something on the stove. A small kitchen, cozy and close. Probably always a little too warm in winter, but no one ever complained. On the table nearby, a boy sat, maybe 7 or 8, crayons scattered across a stack of papers. His mouth moved like he was telling a story as he drew. And once or twice, the woman turned from the stove to nod, smiling as she tasted the sauce with a wooden spoon. Behind them, a man in reading glasses flipped a page in a book, lounging in a well-worn armchair, one foot resting against the leg of the table as if anchoring himself there. Connected even while doing his own thing, a black cat moved lazily across the back of the couch, stretching once, then curling into a circle against a folded blanket. Gwen's heart softened in her chest. She imagined the sounds, the bubbling of soup on the stove, the scratch of crayon on paper, the faint rustle of a turning page, the steady, safe rhythm of a home winding down for the evening. She imagined how warm the tiles must feel under socked feet, how the steam from the pot would fog the window if it boiled too long, how the boy's hands were probably stained with red and blue crayon wax as he excitedly showed off his drawing of a snowman or a superhero or a dinosaur with mittens. She imagined them sitting down together, elbows bumping as they passed the breadbasket. Maybe the cat would leap onto the table and get shooed away with a gentle scolding, only to return 5 minutes later. Maybe the man would start to read aloud from his book, some silly poem or short tale, and the boy would groan dramatically and then giggle. Maybe the woman would rest her chin in her hand and just listen, full of quiet contentment, the kind that doesn't need to be spoken. The whole scene lasted less than a minute, but it stayed with her like the scent of cinnamon on cold air. That contrast of cold and warmth, of distance and connection, drew something small and steady from her. Not longing, not envy, something simpler, something like gratitude. She didn't need to go inside, didn't need to know their names. It was enough to witness it, to feel the pulse of it from across the street. A reminder, maybe, that not all beautiful things needed saving. Some were just meant to be seen. Gwen leaned back, head tilting toward the stars now hidden behind the cloud and snowfall. Somewhere deep in the city, a clock tower chimed softly. She counted the bells. 9. She blinked slowly and smiled. Still early, by Moscow standards. Still plenty of time to sit here. Still plenty of snowfall left to fall. Still more windows glowing. More life moving quietly behind the curtain of winter. She wasn't ready to leave the rooftop yet. She stood there a while longer, silent and unmoving, watching the world spin gently below. But even statues must come down eventually. The snow had all but stopped now, leaving a velvet stillness in its place. Gwen turned her head to the side, scanning the boulevard one last time before she stepped back from the roof's peak. Then, without a word, she dropped. Her body flowed downward like silk unraveling, her feet striking one ledge, then another, each impact soft and controlled. She landed quietly in a narrow alley beside the main street, the sound of her ballet shoes lost beneath the chatter and clinking of dishes in the market beyond. She adjusted her hood, not to hide, just for comfort, and started walking. The cold bit more sharply at ground level, but she didn't mind. The buildings loomed taller here, their bricks dark and damp with snow melt. Lights from windows glowed faintly across the pavement. Her steps echoed off the alley walls until she reached a small street set a little back from the market, a quieter street, with fewer lights and less noise. Just a soft buzz of a neon sign above a restaurant window, flickering faintly in the falling dark. It was an old place, the kind you'd miss if you weren't looking. The sign read only chai, tea, in warm orange letters. No frills, no music outside, just a door, a foggy window, and a rusted heater humming above it. Gwen stepped inside. The warmth hit her like a breath held too long. It wasn't overheated, just comfortably worn in, like a favorite sweater. The lights were soft and amber, casting the interior in hues of honey and earth. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper and old photographs. A coat rack leaned near the door, half full. The smell of brewed tea, spice, and toasted bread hung in the air like a lullaby. Only a handful of people sat scattered through the space, men in worn jackets with calloused hands, their cheeks still red from the cold. They spoke quietly among themselves in Russian. Low voices and nods passed between bites of food. One of them looked up at Gwen when she entered, gave a brief, polite nod, then turned back to his bowl of stew. No fanfare, no questions, just acceptance. She made her way to a small corner table by the window, slid the chair back, and sat. Her legs stretched slightly beneath the table, muscles relaxing now that they weren't balancing on metal or stone. She exhaled deeply, letting her weight settle into the wood. A man with a kind, tired face came by and offered her a smile. No menu, no rush. Chai? He asked gently.
Da, please.
Gwen nodded. A few minutes later, the tea arrived, served in a small white ceramic cup, slightly chipped along the rim. No sugar, no lemon. Just steam rising slowly, curling in the air like a whispered thought. She wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the heat seep through her gloves. Then slowly, she pulled them off, one finger at a time, and set them in her lap. The porcelain felt good against her bare palms, real, solid, present. She didn't rush to drink it. Instead, she watched the window fog over from the heat inside. Beyond the glass, the snow had started falling again, light and slow, like the world was tucking itself in. The market sounds were distant now, nothing more than the gentle thrum behind glass and stone. Inside the restaurant, someone stirred a spoon. A chair creaked. A kettle hissed quietly from behind the counter. Gwen brought the cup to her lips and sipped. The tea was simple, earthy, faintly sweet on its own. It warmed her tongue and chest and settled into her like a small, kind promise. She didn't need to say anything. She didn't need to be anyone. Tonight, she was just Gwen, just a traveler, just a girl sipping tea in a quiet corner of a winter city. And for now, that was enough.